Okay, small hiatus, but we're back. And sitting across from me is someone I think is one of the wisest people to come out of the online scene. I've watched him from afar for quite a while. I've commended the way you carry yourself, not only in business, but I think in life in general. And I wanted to say that to you on camera because the way I discovered you was the story you told about Solomon. And he could have asked for wealth, he could have asked for fame, but he asked for wisdom, right? That's how I try and navigate life. And we're going to touch on many topics: business, soul, spirituality. But I want to start with, first of all, address where we are. We're in a cathedral because I wanted to, I believe that your thoughts are directly related to your environment. The quality of thought that you receive is directly related to your environment. If we're in a small space, confined space, our thoughts will be confined. So, on that note, to people who don't know who you are, firstly, please introduce yourself and tell me your mission as well.
Yeah, Luke Belmar. If you haven't seen me on your timeline, you probably will at some point. Came from Argentina to the United States. That's pretty much where I started my entrepreneurial journey, which is what most people know me for. At the age of 16, $200 in a suitcase. Started by pressure washing basketball courts, cleaning toilets, anything that I could do in order to hustle to make my way to any sort of financial stability. It's where most people have been. And the reason most people resonate with me is because of my come-up story. My come-up story is one that a lot of people are today experiencing, which is the digital gold rush, the ability to make money on the internet. I was one of the early guys, not super early, not early 2000s, but the first wave of true e-commerce and the first wave of crypto that really started taking over the internet and social media. I was making money on Instagram since 2013. So I've been around the social media space for a while. The point is, I started from nothing, and I've been able to build incredible businesses, been able to level up, build an incredible community, and today travel the world and have the ability to impact millions of people with a very simple message, which is to become the fullest version and the best version of yourself. And as content is one of these things that allows your business to scale, it simply and naturally made sense to make some content. The content went viral, and here we are today.
On that note, I did want to touch on thoughts. And one of my favorite books is As a Man Thinketh. I reread it twice a year or so. What do you think about how thoughts create reality and how they control reality?
I mean, everything originates in the mind. The idea is what inspires the opportunity for you to get up and pursue a business. The inspiration that you observe and you think about, and when you observe an athlete win, and that inspires you to endeavor and work hard and become an athlete yourself. Everything originates in the mind. That's why the system is after your mind. From the moment you're born, they start indoctrinating you with the school system. They indoctrinate you with, what's important, what's not important. They attribute your self-worth and your value to what you have to give to the system as opposed to who you are as an individual. So when I begin to evaluate kind of the entirety of how society works, most people don't focus on their mindset. Most people are focused on exterior factors. They think that everything that happens to them is by chance. And they don't realize that a lot of the things that happen to them are things that they attract. Because you attract the things that you are, and you are what you do, and you do what you think about. So it's all a cyclical loop. Most people don't understand the power of the mind. That's why they haven't tapped into the power of the mind. And the power of the mind is one very simple thing: the ability to direct your attention towards a specific given objective, and then to have the willpower to pursue it. Most people, obviously, don't know where they're going because they never have a goal. You need to have a clear goal. If you don't have a goal, you don't know where you're going to go in life. If I ask you today, what's your financial goal for this year, for the next 5 years, for the next 10 years, would you be able to answer? Would you be able to say, yeah, this is my goal? And I'm not talking about how many millions of dollars do you want to have. I'm talking about the positioning. What type of business are you going to have that's going to generate cash flow? What type of investments do you want to have? You need to be able to be very specific about the life that you want, about who you want to become. Mindset, your ability to develop thoughts, is extremely important because your thoughts dictate and create your reality. Thoughts lead to actions, actions lead to behaviors, and behavior leads to lifestyle.
Agreed. And I think you touched on the point there, how people think a lot of it is down to luck. And I think that's what they call external locus of control, right? Whereas people who are positioned correctly, such as yourself, have an internal locus of control, which means they believe they have more control over reality than most people. Do you think your thoughts are even your own?
No. I mean, the thoughts that you capture, whether you believe it or not, are based off of your surroundings, your environment, and your programming. You and I can both look at one thing, an object, and have two completely different set of thoughts based off of our programming, based off of our upbringing, based off of our behavior. You could look at a flag and feel disgusted. I could look at a flag and be like, I feel patriotic. It all depends on the context. So many times the thoughts that we have are not our own, but it doesn't mean that that thought is necessarily bad. What a person must do is look at the thought and ask themselves, is this thought legitimate? Is this thought valid? Does it serve me? Mm-hmm. Not whether it's right, whether it's wrong. Like sometimes when I was broke, I would invite myself to a nice dinner. My mind would tell me, hey, like you can't afford that. Like you shouldn't be going out. But then I said, well, I want to experience this because if I experience it, I'll be able to want it more. Mm-hmm. How am I supposed to want something that I haven't experienced? Mm-hmm. So, okay, look, well, let me experience a nicer dinner. And now I have something to work towards. Well, I want more of this experience. What I've come to realize about mindset and thoughts, and then I want to ask you about what you think about it, is not only that it originates from your context and your environment, but it also comes from how you position yourself. Mm-hmm. The environment, the friends, the music, the food, all these things are choices that you get to make that, once again, are a factor to all the components that are taking place to develop, free thinking or develop a worldview, but it's definitely important. What do you think?
I think the mind acts as a radio receiver, and the frequency to which you tune it determines the quality of thought you receive. So if you're tuned into a negative radio station and the avenue to do that is through your programming.
So once again, how do you tune the radio station?
Yeah, awareness, I believe, like you said earlier.
How do you develop awareness?
I think there's a lot of ways, but I always go back to meditation.
So action.
Yeah.
Right, so it all comes down to how you behave.
Yeah.
How you behave dictates and controls the quality of your thoughts because it's what dictates how you position yourself. So it all comes down to action. That's why there's formulas and recipes to success, which is what I talk about.
Yeah.
There's ways to win. When I meet entrepreneurs, I can tell whether they're going to succeed or not based off of the patterns and behaviors that they instill and that they showcase in their life. Mm-hmm. I know people that are going to lose in life and people that are going to win based off of what? Their behavioral patterns. Mm-hmm. Patterns repeat themselves all across the universe. Yeah. So we understand that for every action, there's an equal and opposite reaction. So if you see somebody inputting negative behaviors, you can very much dictate what the outcome is going to be.
Yeah.
Once again, if you understand these things, you begin to act in accordance to that which you want. Mm-hmm. And the mindset isn't something that you have to have turned on all the time. That's what people neglect. The mindset is just supposed to direct you. And once you have the direction, you just have to go. Mm-hmm. Most people, once again, they don't set the direction and they don't have the steps on how to get there. That's why mentors are important. That's why community is important. That's why understanding and surrounding yourself with people that are older and more experienced is important, because it's going to give you the data sets and the information in order to navigate.
Yeah, I agree. I think one thing you touched on earlier before was that you invited yourself to the dinner, right? And I think that was you tapping into the correct combinations of patterns that would occur in that experience if you could afford it. And that gave you the insight into what it feels like. And because you installed that in your mind, that's a big factor of the action that you took. So it's all, like you said, a feedback loop. So I think it's very important to expose yourself. We'll talk about positioning, but also exposure. I think exposure to, if you want the finer things in life, then the finer things in life is going to break that barrier of the limiting beliefs that you have in your mind.
Exposure to what? Exposure to feedback. So what is feedback? Feedback is information. So once you receive feedback, let's say you go and experience something, you need to go and do some self-analysis and ask yourself, okay, how do I experience more of this, or how do I not experience this again? Like if you fuck up, you should do some introspection and some feedback analysis on why is it that you did what you did and how do you not repeat it? Most people are in feedback loops of negativity. They don't know how to exit them because they don't stop and analyze the feedback. So the loops that they're in, they're stuck. So what you need to do is position yourself like a stoic outside of your thoughts, your emotions, position yourself out there, observe what is taking place and ask yourself, how do you correct it and how do you improve it? The scientific method is the method that I utilize as a basic framework for determining whether something is going to be useful for me or not. The scientific method is very simple. You know, you go from observation to analysis, to thesis, to hypothesis, to testing, to observing, and then to, if you have to, iterate. And then you continue until you find truth. Science is the pursuit of truth, right? So what you need to do is have a pattern as to how you think, a model of thinking that lets you filter truth. If I ask you right now, how do you filter a thought, whether it's true or not? Do you have a process of thought that you go through? Most people don't, but you can develop one very quickly. That's why most people fall prey to propaganda. They can't. That's why when you tell people, hey, you know, COVID was obvious. It was a scam. Well, how did you know? Well, the patterns were there. You just did not have the wherewithal to observe them, but they were there. I'm not alone. Hundreds of millions of people observed the same thing that I observed, but you didn't. Why? And this is the pattern recognition that determines whether you have the ability to freely think or not. And these molds, these filters, are going to help you determine whether you have the ability to find truth or whether you're going to be stuck in some matrix feedback loop that somebody's told you about.